Hello there, I'm Gerard Dixey and I'm almost a level 3 forest school leader. I'm here today at the Quarry Park at Dunsville near Doncaster to do a short introductory ecological and environmental study. I'm going to be talking about the history of this amazing location, which is now a beautiful nature reserve, and I'll be looking at some of the plant life and the fauna and flora that exists in this area. I've been coming to this location for quite a long time with the family, but only recently during lockdown have I discovered the fantastic woodland area which is over to the northwest of this site. I also want it to be a bit of a promo video that encourages anyone out there to come down with a group of young people as a forest schools, part of a forest schools program, and enjoy this wonderful location and explore it and benefit from it. So before I get arrested for being a complete nutter with a camera taking pictures of trees and wildlife, I better get started. So I'm here at the entrance to the Quarry Park, which as I said has become a beautiful natural area to explore. On the map here you can see that the park is divided up into different walk routes, depending on what sort of strength of walk you want to undertake. If you want a quick 30 minutes, or if you want to burn some calories, it kind of gives a breakdown there, which is really helpful. So as I enter through the main gate, a bit of the car park area, carefully managed, come out into a lovely wide open basin. There wasn't a lot of historic information I could find out about the quarry site specifically, but I did discover that Dunsville used to be called Park Lane due to the huge park that was used by kings in ancient times as a hunting ground. The park stretched from Hatfield Chase, about a mile away, down to Wheatley near Doncaster town centre. The chase and park have long since disappeared. A Mrs. Emily Dunn first owned the quarry. It is not clear how she became the owner, but saw an opportunity. Her husband, Mr. Edward Dunn, had been given permission after World War I to develop the area, and this is probably where the name Dunsville originates. There's a wild cherry over there, and lots of little gorse bushes too. We've got this hoary groundsel as well that exists, so it's a real wide range of different flora. So I've just dropped anchor at this beautiful wildflower area that's been carefully managed. It was planted as part of a memorial site for remembering those that had fallen in the war, and you can see the colour and the variety that exists here that's been, as I said, carefully managed to really encourage insect life and greater diversity. So we've got cow parsley, we've got ground horsel just down here, we've got poppies, we've got the cone flower, we've got some mallow musk, which is just a bit further off over there. As you can see, the butterflies and the bees are buzzing around, and what really hits you is the smell. It's a fantastic aroma of honey and nectar. You see that the butterflies there are just finding their way around and just kind of dancing with joy almost. You can see as well loads of bees. I've found grasshoppers here as well. Just down here there's a little anthill, because it is sandy soil, it's sandy acidic soil, and you can see just an ant there, just a flying ant just seems to have popped out. So it's a lovely area for biodiversity, and the butterflies are a great indicator for ecologists as to how healthy an ecosystem is, because they're very sensitive, and they sense changes that can occur within an ecosystem. So if they're observed and there's changes with the butterfly species, then that gives ecologists an indication that something has changed, something has altered, and it might be that there is an invasive species, or it might be a reduction in the food supply. So that gives a kind of a bit of a Geiger count, a bit of an idea to ecologists on how healthy an ecosystem is. Just up this way you can see the kind of sandy bank that leads up to the woodland area, which is the area I really want to get into and explore and check out. So let's go and do that. So I'm standing here at the entrance to the woodland walk. You can see just here, and there's an information board that helps us to understand what we're going to be looking at. So painted lady butterfly. There was another board earlier that had another species of butterfly on it. You've got the rowan with the red berries, and you've got the sweet chestnut as well. So but as we walk through, immediately we are faced with a very familiar tree in England, and that's the oak. So these oak trees have been planted. Oak are deciduous. That means that the leaves are broad, and and they lose their leaves during the winter seasons, the colder seasons. They're slow growing. They take years to grow. I was speaking to one of the locals, and he was saying that he thinks this woodland area is about 30 years old. So I've come a bit further into the heart of the wood, and immediately as you look around, you can see there's a mixture of both deciduous, that's hardwood, broadleaf trees, and also you can just see just a clump together there, you've got a group of pine trees as well, which are coniferous. That means cone bearing, evergreen trees. These are very fast growing, take about sort of 30 years to mature, which is pretty fast really for a tree. They're a softwood tree. That means that they are less dense because they grow so fast. The fibres inside are less dense, easier to kind of work with, and are very popular for manufacture. There's pine trees that are used extensively for furniture and for other resources, building materials. So we've got the pine trees over there, and on the ground you can see, as I said, there's loads of cones that have fallen. You can see that someone has done a little bit of forest school work here, perhaps, or just out with the family, making a bit of a base. Here's our silver birch. Let's talk about the silver birch tree. Fantastic tree for lots and lots of reasons. It's brilliant because you can peel the bark off, and that helps to create a great bit of a resource for kindling. So it's brilliant for fire starting. The smaller branches are very oil rich, so you get a very hot flame when you're burning it. You can drink the sap. You can make a tea from the small twigs and buds. People say there's lots of health benefits. You can actually eat the leaves when they're young, and even though they're a little bit bitter, some argue again there's some real health benefits to having this tree. It's brilliant because it exists obviously quite well in this very sandy soil, but it's also good because they're quite thirsty. They're good for draining an area. So you might have a really boggy area that needs draining. So planting these trees that they do shoot up very quickly into the canopy, as you can see there, but they're very thirsty, and they can drain an area of a kind of if it's a bit swampy, and make it less so, because of just the way they operate. As you can see, I mentioned before, there's some beautiful oak trees. Again, the diameter of these of the trunk is very small, which indicates that they've not long been planted, but they are very slow growing. So let me talk about the structures that exist in this forest. If I start with the ground layer, which is about anything from 2 centimetres up to about 1.5 meters. You can see that on the ground we've got a very sandy soil. So if I scrape that away a little bit, it becomes a little bit more moist. As I do so, I'm exposing what seems to be a little rodent hole, something that made its home in there in the past. So it is definitely damper down in that soil. Again, I've just opened that up there as a root system, but evidence of possibly a little bit of a burrowing that might have taken place in the past. Sand is so easy to move, isn't it? But sandy soils are acidic. They are not great for retaining moisture. Clay soils have more nutrients locked into them, so nitrates and calcium can be taken out of away because the water just tends to flow straight through the sand. So there is a real danger actually in managing an area like this, that it's important that that it's well irrigated. You can also see as well there's a lot of leaf litter on the ground. again, that carries carbon and other nutrients back into the soil as a kind of carbon cycle for the roots to be able to absorb those nutrients back into to making food for the tree and keeping the tree nice and healthy. Okay, so the next layer is the herb layer or the field layer. As I move around, you can see that's anything really from 1.5 metres up to about 4 metres. So we've got these small shrubs that exist. We've got some nettles over here. We've got some ferns over in that direction, and these small kind of shoots that are coming up here. This is an elder over here. By the way, I'm not an expert on trees, you know. I'm using apps that kind of identify the leaves really quickly, so I'm doing a bit of swatting up first, cheating a bit really, but it helps me just to further my knowledge of the trees and the flora that exists in this area and other areas as well. It just kind of lodges in the mind, so it's easy to recognise for the future. But you can see how well their growth tends to take place during the springtime, as the leaves are just starting to form. And if you look there in the canopy, you can see the canopy is largely closed up now. But that sunlight in early spring falls down onto the forest floor and giving life really and speedy growth to these smaller shrubs that are desperate to get that sunlight to be able to create the nutrients that they need in order to survive and thrive. So moving up a stage, we've got what's called the understory, which is sits just underneath the canopy. So these are maybe your smaller trees. You can see the oaks there that are pushing through. The dominating trees in the canopy, which is the top kind of layer, if you like, those are the pines, because I say they tend to shoot up. The silver birch have really raced for the sun as well, and sort of blocked out a lot of that sunlight for the forest floor. But yeah, you can see just the ones that just sit underneath that. You've got the rowans that tend to just do that. And the other thing I need to say is that in the heart of the wood, you've got probably a closer selection of species. So you'll have in the heart of the wood a very sort of regular group of trees. It might be all silver birch or pretty much all pine, or just a smaller group of species of trees. When you get to the outskirts of the wood, the woodland environment where there's more light, you tend to get more diversity, and so we've got hawthorn over here. I mentioned alder as well, and yeah, it just shows that they've got more of a chance to grow here. Really, they don't grow to a huge height, so it makes them this area a bit more favourable for them, so they can get to that light without anything above them sort of blocking the light out. There's a huge array of wildlife that will be existing in this area. Evidence suggests that birds choose specific trees to do their foraging. So we've got insect-loving birds that will choose a particular location on that tree. So it might be the top part of that tree. Studies have been done with warblers, and certain types of warbler will aim for a certain part of that tree as a resource, and will kind of only eat maybe at the top part of that tree or in the middle part of that tree or near the trunk. Some maybe go for more toward the bottom of the tree, and so obviously having a greater variety of trees within a given space will increase certain specific fauna that might be attracted to that particular tree. Birds are incredible spreaders of seeds as well, because obviously they're eating them, they're consuming them, and they're depositing the seeds in the droppings, and so again that helps to spread a greater diverse species in a woodland area or further afield. These broad leaves, they open up to attract that sunlight, which is so vital for them to produce the carbohydrate food that they need for sustenance. Let me just briefly explain how that works. A process called photosynthesis. So the sun's energy comes onto the broadleaf of the tree, and what happens then is the sun's energy converts the carbon dioxide, which is the gas that animals and humans breathe out all the time. They're able to absorb that carbon dioxide, and with the water that's taken in through the roots, the energy that's been trapped by the sun's energy has been trapped by the tree, is able to convert or break apart the H2O, the hydrogen that is in the water, and it mixes the carbon and the hydrogen together to make a carbohydrate. And we eat carbohydrates, don't we, like pasta and rice and flour, bread products, and those carbohydrates are the key nutrients that are taken in by that tree. And what's the byproduct? The byproduct is that oxygen is released. So the oxygen that's taken from the water is then released. And so in terms of the benefit of being amongst trees is that we get a rich oxygen supply, which is absolutely fantastic. You know, humans cannot exist on the planet without trees. That's how fundamental they are for the continuation of life on Earth. That amazing process takes place, a God-given process that is fundamental to life on Earth. So I'm just getting a bit further on into the wood, and again I can see some evidence that some building's been taking place, which is absolutely brilliant. If we just look up here, you can see that there are some kind of dead branches, and climbing these trees would be problematic, not only because the branches are quite sharp and spiky. It would be better to do a bit of climbing on a hardwood tree. These branches do tend to just die because most of the sun's light is being captured by the needles at the top there, but these become very brittle and break off quite easily. So that is a problem in terms of tree climbing. So woodland environments can be managed in different ways. I've just come to a bit of a clearing. You can see there's a bit of a path down there as well. I've just come from this direction, just through this more dense area, but this is a nice bit of a glade here, so that you might find rabbits, you might find foxes, you might find other sort of more smaller mammals or larger mammals like deer that might use this area. And so as part of the management, sometimes forests are planted in rows. So it's very, very clear that they've been managed for a specific reason. How far apart the trees have been planted has been taken into account for the root systems and for maximising growth. But you also might have an area which is a bit like this, where the trees have been carefully planted, but also open spaces might be built into that woodland system. So as I'm walking through, I've done a bit of study on this area, and what's been really interesting is that I've looked at some maps from that date back to the 1830s, 1835, something like that, and it shows that this whole area was just once farmland. I mentioned earlier that historically this was a huge park, a parklands area that was suitable for hunting in, but this back in the 1830s, as I said, that this area was a field. It was just used for farming, maybe for grazing or for growing crops. But what's really interesting as we go through the wood a little bit further is that one of the boundary lines that you can see from the old maps is still here. It's like a kind of hedge, almost out of place really, that runs with a slight dike as well, that runs through the wood, which would have been a natural boundary line, and we're shortly coming to that now. So this is the area that I was just talking about. As you can see, it's a kind of row, a kind of demarcation line, which probably would have existed as an ancient hedgerow, and it's hawthorn, which again is very typical for hedgerows to be of that species. But you can see it's slightly raised area just here, and it kind of goes all the way out to the open field. I'll show you the picture on Google Maps as I speak over the video, so you can just see exactly where I am in terms of location, but also compare that against the older ancient map that stems back to the 1830s. So that's all the way across this whole woodland area. I wonder why they kept this hedgerow running directly straight through the middle of this woodland. Maybe it was because it was just a shame to take it away. It's like it's like an ancient hedge, and you can see how it doesn't look like a hedge anymore. It's obviously grown to quite some height, and this would have been the demarcation line. I mentioned before that certain birds love certain species of tree because of the fruit or the insects that might be on there. So again, it just improves the greater diversity and helps to balance the ecological systems that exist here. Just making my way out now to one of the main pathways that kind of runs. There's Barnby Dun in that direction, off to the sort of northwest, and this way's back pointing towards Stainforth and Hatfield. So finally, what can be done here then? If you're bringing a group of young people as a part of the Forest Schools programme, it's a fantastic resource just to be able to walk through and just do a nature trail. It's a great place to be able to bring, I think, very little ones, but also young people. You'll be able to spend some time talking about the different species of tree and the benefits of those trees from a kind of ecological point of view, but also from a kind of manufacturing point of view, and how they can be used for product design and for structures, etc., because of the different properties. It's got a fantastic wide open space. If you wanted to do a wide game, you can climb trees, you can build dens, and it'd be a great place for doing a kind of nature treasure hunt. Can you find X, Y, and Z? Plenty of places just to go and have a big game of hide and seek, or a big sort of capture the flag activity. With permission, I'm sure we'll be able to bring a group of people here just to do some fire making, to do some outdoor cooking. There is a Friends of Dunsville Quarry Park, which on Facebook, they've got a Facebook group, and you can contact them, and I'm sure with permission from them you'll be able to come down here, and along with permission probably from the council you probably need, but it'd be great to be able to come into this lovely space and just enjoy the benefits of it. I'm sure they'll be very happy that people are out there taking an interest and using this site to further the mental health and development and emotional literacy of young people in this community. So I hope you've enjoyed this time. I've certainly enjoyed just getting out here again and just looking at what this open space has got to offer. So hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully catch up soon. Bye for now. Great, I'm back at the car and I didn't get arrested.